Welcome in. Today, we're going to be watching an interview between Eric McRae, aka the Plebian on YouTube, and MagickMoonshot, who is or used to be a Halo caster in the pro scene, who recently had some drama going on with her because she was holding Halo scrims in her Discord channel, in her Discord server for women, but excluding trans women. We have a video of that on our channel here going over that. So if you want to get caught up on that, go ahead and watch that first. But I was asked by the Plebian to watch this interview and give my thoughts, so I will. And here we are. Hi, YouTube. Here, have a turtle. That's awesome. Anyways, if you like this kind of stuff, if you like this kind of commentary, make sure you hit that subscribe button. It helps us out a lot. If you like stuff like this, let me know by commenting. I'll do some more stuff like this if you'd like. Also, hit the like or dislike button accordingly. Okay, here we go. Let's see if this is going to be loud enough. The last version of this video, the audio was really bad, so I wasn't able to watch it. So I'm glad that he was able to upload it again with better audio.
So, good evening. Today we are speaking to MagickMoonshot. How's it going?
It's good. It's a Friday. I'm ready for the weekend. Kind of finished up most of like the have to do stuff for the week, and then tomorrow's kind of like family day, so looking forward to that.
Oh, that's good. All right.
Okay.
So I take it you are heavily family oriented then.
Yeah, I'm a full-time stay-at-home mom, and I homeschool both of my kids, so they tag along with me pretty much. Gotta keep them
out of those public schools. Gotta keep them from being indoctrinated by the public school system.
Almost 24/7, but yeah, very very family focused.
Sorry, I'm not gonna be doing that too. I'm not gonna be making too much fun here. I'm trying to take this seriously because there's a difference between when I'm just like doing regular commentary on something and I'm like making jokes and stuff, and then and like trying to be a little serious here because I don't I'm not trying to baselessly attack people. I want to cut some actual commentary here. So just as a heads up, sorry if this is a little dry, but we're doing it.
I actually respect homeschooling. It's funny. I grew up in California, and I used to make fun of people who are homeschooled because they were weird.
I know.
Eric!
But the funny thing is, years later, I told my friends, like, you know what? I made fun of you guys. Maybe I was a bit too harsh because I actually can respect homeschooling over public school. I'm not saying
He's out of pocket for that one. Yeah. I'm glad. It's so cool that you homeschool your kids. I used to make fun of homeschool kids because they're weird. That's so fucking awesome.
Bricks, but they are definitely smarter than me. So I'm like, okay, I can respect the idea behind homeschooling.
I think that like for everybody it's different. I mean, I was homeschooled, my husband was homeschooled, but the main reason we decided to do it this year.
Okay, well, I'm going to listen to a reason, but I also want to say that there's a big correlation between people who are very religious and being homeschooled, because a lot of religious people choose to homeschool their children to keep them away from outside influences like that. It's and so I'm not surprised.
Like a couple of years ago, our son was in private school and that went really well for him, but it just became too expensive, and we live out in the country, so it's a long drive to get to any schools that we liked. So I would much rather spend my day at like teaching the kids at home. Please,
Eric, please ask her why she doesn't send her kids to public school. I need to know this information. It is pertinent.
Instead of driving them back and forth, it felt like that was becoming my job, was like the school chauffeur, just because of, it was kind of one of the few downsides of living in the country was that we didn't have like a lot of schools to choose from that are like within a reasonable distance.
A school choice moment. Please ask why she doesn't send them to public school, please.
Yeah. All right. So I was going to say, So you said you're from the country, though.
No,
I'm from Michigan.
ask her.
Michigan. My husband has tried to turn me into a country girl over the last 10 years that we've been married. So gradually he's kind of persuading me over to a little bit more of his natural bent. I would say I'm a little bit more of a city girl. So
Gamer girl, the country girl pipeline.
Michigan, and then about 12 years ago, I moved down here to Florida.
Oh, okay. You know, it's funny.
I did not know that she lives in Florida. I did not know that she lives in Florida. There are flags here. There are red flags here, okay? A lot of them. Okay? And Eric McRae, I need to know, why did they choose to homeschool their kids in the countryside in Florida? Please ask this. I need to know. This is important information. This has everything to do with what is going on with her right now. Hey, it could be nothing. Oh yeah, we just we inherited lands down there. That would be a reason. Or we got a really good deal. Or we got a job down there that we couldn't pass up. But you don't just randomly move to the countryside of Florida for no reason. You don't randomly decide to homeschool your kids and not allow them to go to public school for no reason. I'm just saying. I just want to know. I'm just a bit curious, okay? It could be nothing, but I'm curious.
A little background about myself. I grew up in the Bay Area, East Palo Alto, and I quickly, at the age of 10, we moved from the Bay Area because it got expensive in the 2000s and moved to Modesto, which is like the valley, pretty much very Republican-red farming community of California. Yeah. And I learned real quick to appreciate country over city. And I love city. I do. It's very convenient.
Yeah.
Even the malls and the food, I love it all. But the problem was, once you go out and touch grass, as most people would say, you realize, the country's not that bad. And then I remember when I joined the Mormon church at 16, and I lasted for about, 5-6 years. Yeah. But I left. But during that time, I spent 2 years in the South, Tennessee and Kentucky. Okay. The Nashville, Tennessee mission was my area. And so I really went out there with this attitude of the West Coast is the best coast, Yeah. You can't tell me nothing. But going out there and learning from, the Mennonites, the Amish people, just rednecks, and you learn how they live their life. You're like, oh, you actually live a good life. It is not nearly as bad as I thought. Like, it's weird. Like, I went from city boy to loving the country more.
I think that's one of the things about America that's so cool is because there is that different flavor everywhere you go, and it's not like it's not like city life is better or country life is better. It's just finding out what is best you're suited to.
Catch me dead touching grass.
What do you enjoy the most? Well, there's definitely pros and cons. As you said, both ways. So for us, with our goal being to raise the kids, the quiet country life, especially while they're young, just felt like kind of a natural choice for us.
Honestly, I would much rather raise my kids. I don't have any now, but in the future, I'd rather raise my kids in the country because I was raised in the city, and I got into a bunch of nonsense and shenanigans in the city. But as someone in the country, I realized a lot of kids out there are raised better, more proper.
I just am. I'm sorry. I'm just stuck. I want to get past the small talk portion of this so we can actually get into the questions. But I really am sad. I feel like Eric missed a really good opportunity to get into, dive into more of who MagickMoonshot is as a person, as a family person from the get-go. If he had just asked about, what is the reasoning behind, and he didn't even have to do it in an aggressive way. Right, because she opened up that conversation we homeschool our kids. Private school is a little too expensive. It's well, what's the reasoning behind homeschooling against public schooling? And that really would have opened some doors for a baseline of where she is at with how she views the world, I guess. You know what I mean? And once again, to be charitable, she hasn't said public schools are gay and they're making my kids trans or something like that. She hasn't said any of that. That's me projecting that. It could be for very innocent reasons, but I'm just saying, Florida, out in the countryside, homeschool.
The way they speak to adults is different versus
Yeah, it's
how city
definitely
kids
yeah,
speak
it's
to them.
definitely a different culture. But like again, I don't think I don't really feel like one is better or one is worse, because I think it really comes down to like, you know, how intentional you are with your family, right? Like the surrounding environment can have some impact on that. You know, where we moved from was a really high like kind of gang area, high drug percentage, and that was when I was at home with the kids when they were like, you know, 1 and 2 and newborns. And so, you know, sirens every night, gunshots in the neighborhood, like what have you. So moving out to the country where it is quieter out here. I mean, that was the biggest thing that was like, to me, was different. And it did feel a little bit more like security, a little bit more safe, you know. Where we lived before, like nothing crazy happened with us. We had a bike stolen, you know, off of our driveway. Like that was really the extent of it. That's pretty minor. But it just like, you know, I felt better with like letting the dogs run out in the backyard, the kids play in the backyard. Now that we're, you know, on a dirt road.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah. I mean, overall, I can agree with you. It doesn't really matter, I guess, where you raise them, as long as you have different preferences and you raise them properly. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah.
But I was definitely turned on by the South by just living out there. And I, you know, like I said, Nashville, Tennessee, Kentucky, Georgia, and Florida. I spent a couple years out in Florida near the Pensacola area.
Yeah.
And I love it out there. It was
Oh, okay.
They're nice in Pensacola and stuff too.
Sorry, don't want to be rude, but let's move it along. I thought this was going to be more of a probe into her reasoning behind it. It just feels kind of like a very casual podcast. I mean, I guess this is a good way to get her into being comfortable with answering questions and not being defensive. He's a very likable guy. I'm just used to watching very aggressive conversations like this. You know what I mean?
Clear water. But the worst thing for me, as far as Florida goes, is I don't like beaches. I would much rather be, like you said, Kentucky, Tennessee, even Georgia. I love the mountains. So I'm like, man, if I'm gonna live out in the middle of nowhere, I want mountains at least. But I don't get that here. So that's the one downside.
Yeah, that's fair. But the beaches in Florida are so much more nicer than in California. It's cold.
Yeah.
In California. But the Panhandle, you know, or the Fort Lauderdale, the water is warm. It'll be 2 a.m. The water's warm. I was like, it's nice.
Yeah, true.
But we should probably talk about what I can't talk about.
Sure.
Here we go.
Sorry, I have the gift of gab, so I will just talk about you. Throw a topic, I will talk.
No, I'm the same way. So I'm trying to, like, you know, be a better, you know, person when it comes to conversations, because I'll talk all day, every day. But okay, so recently you made some online waves. Do you want to tell the audience what that was exactly? And, you know,
you could tell that she doesn't take this very seriously because of the eye roll when he said that. Hold on, let me roll it back here. That just made me mad because this whole situation has made me upset.
What that was exactly, and, you know, what happened with that.
Hold on, sorry.
Do you want to tell the audience what that was exactly? You made some online waves.
Eye roll. Yeah, there it is. That just made me mad. Sorry. So here we go. She's not taking this seriously. She doesn't give a fuck. I knew she wouldn't. That's fine. I knew she wouldn't, but I mean, that just makes me mad. You know what I'm saying?
Do you want to tell the audience what that was exactly, and, you know, what happened with that?
Sure.
And by the way, you can be openly honest. You know, I'm someone who believes in honesty, so I can understand.
Yeah, I was
incoming turfhood.
So I guess a little like just to kind of catch you up for context. I've been in the Halo Infinite community ever since the game launched back 2 years ago. I think actually next month, if I'm not mistaken. So back towards the end of 2021 when Halo Infinite launched. I moved over to the title, but previously I was mostly making content around Destiny 2, some Apex Legends, Fortnite back when it first came out, etc. But when Halo Infinite launched, I specifically moved over with the intention of getting into casting or commentary. So I switched over, and the first tournament I ever casted was like December. So the game had been launched for 2 months. And I got my first tournament that was, a volunteer gig. After that, I had a little bit of a larger tournament in January, and it just kind of slowly started to build up over the last, year and a half or so. To the point of earlier this year, we were attending HCS events, and I was casting with LVT Halo, who they are a Halo grassroots partner. So they weren't direct HCS broadcasts, but they were kind of in partnership with HCS for doing like secondary broadcasts of the tournaments. So kind of like supplemental coverage, I think would probably be the best way to describe that. So during this whole time, and even before Halo Infinite, I've run dozens of tournaments myself, whether open tournaments through multiple titles. I've also run some tournaments that are specifically for women that I ran through the Women of Halo Discord. But this event that I was working on to kind of catch up to where we are now, I was wanting to run a women's just scrim, like practice tournament for upcoming events that I knew were on the way.
Okay.
And I wanted to run it out of my own Discord. So as I was kind of planning to build a category and build like roles in my Discord, that's when I was kind of like stopped short to decide, like, how do I decide who gets entry into these women's scrims?
If they're typically when you build out a tournament for women, you allow women to play in the scrims. That's typically what you do. That's usually the rule of thumb.
And that was when I made the decision to keep it to, I guess what people would label as biological women only.
No, cis women is what you say. Saying biological women is a turf term. It's a huge turf term. It's cis women.
Only. So not allowing transgender women to participate. In the Women of Halo Discord and other tournaments, they have been open to transgender women, which is fine. I had no issue commentating their gameplay or hyping them up on the screen. But for
I had no issue in getting paid to commentate the Women of Halo gameplay. But when it came to running a tournament in my own Discord, I wasn't going to have those people there. You could just see the hatred in her eyes. It's so fucking horrible. This shit gets me so mad, dude. Okay, let's just keep listening for a second.
Bringing it into my personal Discord, it kind of like hit a little bit home that I wanted to be true to what I believe is a true woman. And so that's why I made the statement that I wasn't going to allow transgender women for this particular event because it was coming into my own Discord server. And that's the tweet that kind of blew up the internet, if you will.
Blew up the internet, if you will. Sorry to inform you of this, but there's a very niche community of brain dead gamers like myself who saw that tweet. It didn't blow up the internet. You're not famous. You're not like a superstar now. So this is which basically what she's doing is she's being a trans exclusionary radical feminist. She's like, "Oh, I'm being feminist and I want to hold tournaments for women in gaming, but that only includes what she says biological women," which again is a TERF phrase, which she's referring to cis women. TERFs use this phrase specifically because they do not believe that trans women are women. So they use that term to exclude them from that. Okay.
Yes.
I think that's the best I can do as far as context.
I'm sorry. I just remember it was a couple weeks back, and I deleted my Facebook account because I was like, you know what? I'm getting into creative writing, and Facebook is just a pitch show. And Twitter to me was a better place for writers who wanted to just understand, the system better, people in society, because a lot of stuff is on Twitter. A lot of news articles, everything you want on Twitter for the most part. And so when I heard about your situation, I thought to myself, this is interesting, actually. And it's weird because even though I'm objective, I always side with, that pesky First Amendment, And we brought that up.
If you're, I mean, that's so stupid. Yeah, that pesky First Amendment where you're allowed to just discriminate against people. Like, do you side with the First Amendment when it comes to people being bigoted in every other way? This is bigotry, okay? And don't say fuck this guy Coldfire. I don't think that this is a bad guy or anything, okay? And I'm glad that this exists, by the way, because this is good content and it's something that I wanted to see. But I hate the First Amendment argument because they're like, well, I was exercising my First Amendment, and then everybody freaked out. It's like, no, they just were simply also exercising the First Amendment and telling you that you're a piece of shit for being a bigot.
Earlier.
Yeah.
And so I guess before we talk about the First Amendment, I guess what was your final straw for you to make that announcement and die on that hill?
Well, first of all, I wasn't looking for this to be something that would like I said, blow up the internet, that would go huge on Twitter or would make waves. It was specifically because I had announced these women's scrims on Twitter or X, right? And so I wanted to have the follow-up of kind of clarifying to also be on that same platform where I had made the original announcement, just so people knew up front. And I knew there would be some people that would disagree or would argue that stance. But I mean, I obviously had no idea.
But why? The question is not like what happened but why choose to exclude trans women from esports? Okay? There's a baseline argument, which is also wrong, by the way. There's a baseline argument that people use to exclude trans women from physical sports, okay? Which is also wrong, by the way. Keep that in mind. There's nuances to it, but most of the time those arguments are incorrect and are baseless, okay? But this is esports. This is esports. Why are you excluding trans women from esports? And turf arguments, and I'm sure she'll get into this, but turf arguments will always be that they don't see trans women as women. They see, and this is really, really disgusting, but they see trans women as men invading biological women's spaces. Okay, which the implication there is that trans women do not experience similar plights to cis women, which is also incorrect. If you think about it for 2 seconds, if you have any critical thinking skills for 2 seconds, you would understand that that is incorrect. So it's just so deeply frustrating.
What the repercussions were. So I wasn't looking for, some people kind of credit me for a lot more maniacal craftiness and like creating this, I think what they would say is platform, or like you said, hill to die on, which was never it.
No, people who say that are so dumb, where they're like, yeah, she did this for clout. She knew what was going to happen. No, she didn't. She's utilizing it now. Going to do an interview with the Quartering, who is a notorious alt-right grifter, like Nazi freak. So she's utilizing it now, but in her mind, being a transphobe is not a big deal.
It was, for me, it was just about being honest about my beliefs and where I stand, and then making sure to let people know that far enough ahead of time so that they could plan accordingly whether to attend or not attend. So I knew there were going to be some kickback. I knew there's going to be some argument, but I really had no idea the scale that it would go to, which I guess for the listeners, that tweet right now has 4.5 million views,
wow.
Which is pretty absurd for something that is a specific, game title. Even a smaller game title, right? Like a less populated game title, one small scrim event, not even a big cash payout tournament, right? It was a small community-based scrim, And for whatever reason,
Yeah, views. She uses views as her metric. Anybody scrolling by the tweet counts as a view, even if they didn't read it.
People took it and ran.
It's the same argument when people are like, Tucker Carlson's breaking the internet with his new Twitter show. It has 3 million views. And it's like, yeah, because I scrolled past it. I scrolled past it earlier today, so that was another view for you.
You know, I can respect people who stick to their guns on certain things. Like I said, you know, as objective as I am, you know, again, I'm always going to be a little bit more biased toward people who stand their ground. And I would never, in my personal opinion, demonize somebody who would, let's say, wouldn't want a space for me if it's all woman space. It wouldn't bother me just because.
Okay, Eric, I know you have good intentions here. You are not involved in any way with this situation. What you just said is giving validity to her transphobia. You're saying, oh yeah, I get it because I shouldn't be able to participate. You are not a woman, Eric. You are not involved in this at all. Okay?
I respect people's, you know, safety or their religious beliefs. And so a quick story about me, back when I was serving my missions, again, over a decade ago, there was this guy who I worked with. He was, we used to, you know, the Mormons who knock doors. I did that. And there's this guy in Tennessee who I would talk to, and his name was Billy Bass. He was a former Hells Angels enforcer.
Billy Bass, hell yeah.
Early 70s, late 60s, but he was built, you know, like a, you know, Hells Angels kind of guy. And he was and you go to his apartment and he had his full-on racist regalia. You know, he was racist, but at the same time, once we got to know each other, months later after I left the area, he told me I was his second, you know, black friend because, again, in that gang, obviously, especially back in the 60s and 70s when he was really active, they had a, you know, no blacks allowed.
What the fuck are we talking about here? I actually love that he's telling this story right now and that she is fully aware that in this story, she is the racist, buff Hells Angels guy. Oh my god! That's so fucking funny. Holy shit. He's like, yeah, I actually know exactly what you mean. I do respect people who stick to their guns. There's this guy I met once that was incredibly racist. That's so fucking sick.
That's our policy. But the point I'm getting at is just once you sit down with people, you know, you actually humanize them and get to know them, you know, you'll learn that it's never that deep, and you can, you know, definitely form bonds. So, and I'm not comparing you to a former Hells Angels. Not at all.
No, it's okay.
Yeah. I'm just saying, in general, I love the idea.
That's so fucking funny.
Because it's so easy to demonize you as a hateful bigot. And I've seen the replies you've gotten. I've watched a couple of YouTube videos, pro you, anti you, and I'm just like, okay, is this really?
That's me. He watched mine, guys. He watched mine.
What we want to do with people, we want to demonize them. And I read your tweets about how you felt about it, and honestly, a lot of, you know, Christians would say the same thing. Like, they don't agree with, you know, transgenderism, or even bisexual. They don't agree.
Wait, what?
Would say the same thing. Like, they don't agree with, you know, transgenderism, or even, you know, me being bisexual. They don't agree with it. But
Eric, bisexual king, let's go. Wait, but why? Why do religious people not agree with trans people being allowed to exist? Why? That's the question.
But you don't hate me, you know?
Right. And I think the interesting.
She's like, yeah, I don't hate you. You just make me feel extremely uncomfortable. Lamau.
I think to me, kind of along that line, if you don't mind, is that I have had so many positive interactions with people from every walk of life. I don't think you could find a person within the Halo community that said that I was a hateful person. Like, they interacted with me in person, or they came to my stream and they felt like I was targeting, attacking, hating, judging, like whatever the word is.
Yeah, because you want their views, so you're going to treat people with respect. But if you're holding tournaments and excluding a large group of people in a bigoted manner, then that is hateful.
Even a lot of people who very outwardly spoke against this said they were like shocked or disappointed. These are people that actually like know me. They said shocked or disappointed, or a lot of them said like, you were always so kind to me, I'm surprised by this. But it's like, at one point, like, and
that was the most of the replies that I saw, by the way, is a lot. It was heartbreaking, by the way. It was a lot of trans women Halo players in the replies saying, wow, you've always been so kind to me and I watch your streams all the time. It's really sad to see that you're doing this. And it is. It's hateful. It is hateful. You don't exclude people like that out of love.
What point is how you treat people what you're actually being judged about, right? Because I've always been careful to treat people respectfully, whether I agree.
Listen, if you are face to face talking to somebody with dignity and respect, that is basic human communication. It is the baseline. You are a social outcast freak if every time you talk to somebody, you're like, get away from me, loser. Even if you don't like them, okay? The hateful part is being bigoted and holding a tournament for women and excluding a group of women from that. That's the hateful part. Just because you can have a baseline, conversation with respect for another human being doesn't mean that you're a good person.
With their lifestyle or not, I don't think that. Like, I don't look at them as less of a person, as less of a human, less deserving of kindness, and but they, as soon as I said that, hey, here's my personal beliefs, I don't believe that transgender women are women, so they're not going to be allowed in my women only event. That was it. Like, that was all. I left it at that. I didn't.
That is the lack of dignity and respect. That is. It's bigoted. And it's untrue. There's nothing in the Bible that says that trans women aren't women or trans people can't exist. That is made up. It's a farce. It's a lie. Tell me why. Why do you believe that?
Say like, I didn't say any of the hateful things that people like added onto it or implied from that statement. And
exactly. The hateful thing is saying that trans women are not women. That is the hateful thing. You are so brain dead if you can't see that. Oh, I didn't say any of the hateful things that people said. You just said it. You have already said it. It has been said just now. You're so ignorant.
A lot of really respectful conversations with people who very outright disagreed with me, and that's fine. I think that they have every right to disagree with me, just like I have every right to hold, my beliefs and my opinion, as long as it's done in a way that, isn't looking at you as less of a human because you're on a different stance than I am.
Yeah, no, I agree. And that's the hardest thing when it comes to differences of opinion. People automatically think, you're a hateful, bigoted, right-winger Christian. And I'm just like, I don't think that's the case. Not every Christian is a Westboro Baptist Church type of person. They're very few in between. Most people who are Christian, in my experience, are people who believe strongly in their beliefs, but they're willing to...
And that's exactly what I'm talking about, by the way. Eric just made my point for me. Everybody has a baseline of respect except for social outcast freaks like the Westboro Baptist Church. Okay? Do you think that social outcast freaks are the only people capable of hate and bigotry? Do you think that's the case? Do you think that normal everyday people walking around aren't transphobic, racist, homophobic? Do you think that's the case? Because if that is your stance, then I have some breaking news for you. That's not the case. People who are normal but also bigoted are capable of having polite conversations with people that they don't like or see as lesser people. The fact that you are saying that trans women are not women is you seeing trans women as lesser people. That's it.
Love people. And again, I live in Utah, Provo, down the street from BYU. And I always talk with Mormons, people who I serve my mission with, even though they don't agree with my, sexuality, rightfully so. We always eat dinner together, hang out with their kids around their family, their grandparents,
Eric, come on. Rightfully so. Yeah, they don't agree with my bisexuality, rightfully so. Come on, Eric. I'm a different kind of bisexual than you, my friend.
Not the other to them. I'm just Uncle Eric, I'm just that goofy guy who they can get along with. And that's what I try and do with these spaces, is try and find, the human in you that people can't find themselves.
Yeah. Because
like I said, as you know, you blew up on Twitter and it's pretty nasty.
I think that there's one position that I saw. This one was regarding, I'm trying to think. I think there's a pastor, his name's Alistair Begg, and this was just like an Instagram reel. So there's not much context that I even have from this, 30-second, 1-minute video. But he was discussing the LGBTQ community. And he was saying that when you as a Christian look at them, it's not just you hate them or you affirm them, because as Christians, we're not called to hate anyone. That should never be what a Christian is known for, or how we treat people with hatred. But we also can't affirm or go along with lifestyles that go against what we believe Jesus is.
But why? Give me your points. This is frustrating me because I'm wanting this to be more of a debate where we dive into why you think that is true. But she's just talking about the same standpoints that I already knew existed from Twitter. This is deeply frustrating. Why? Why do you think that? Please tell me. Give me something. Not that I believe in the Bible, but God damn it, I can't find a single part in the Bible that's like, oh, yeah, and then God said that trans women aren't women. Where is that? Who's telling you this? Where's Talworks? We need Tally in here. Tally would do me right in this conversation.
Teaching is. But there is a position that is not either of those extremes. And I think that is where we're kind of getting stuck, where people want you to pick one or the other. So as soon as you're not affirming them and their beliefs, their lifestyle, their choices, they jump to the other extreme. And I would say I'm neither of those. So I wouldn't go along and say applaud you for being bisexual, but I also don't hate you for making that choice for your life. You're an adult. You can choose, the path that you want to take.
What she's saying is it's wrong and gross and yucky. Ah, God, this is making me fucking sick.
Take for your life, and I fully support that.
Yeah, and I respect that. Well, real quick, I'll talk about this one, then we'll go on to the next question. But it's funny, being Mormon for a few years, one thing that they taught us in the church was agency. I don't know how it is with other religions, but are you familiar with the word agency?
I don't know in this context really what. I'd be happy for you to explain that to me. Okay,
well, I guess in the Mormon context, agency is the right to self-govern, to make your choices. We believe, I formally believed, and the Mormons teach to this day that agency is the most important thing that God gave us on this earth. Okay. We can choose which path in life that we take.
So is it similar to free will?
Yes, exactly.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much free will. And the reason why, that's chosen for us because at the end times, we believe that when it's time for us to be judged, we can't make excuses for ourselves. Someone forced me. Say, no, you have the choice. And I've even come to terms with this as someone who is, queer, and I still believe in, Jesus Christ as my savior. But I understand also there's definitely going to be a time where if 99% of the Christians are correct, you will have to answer for all your sins. And so in my mind, I've done my best to just come to terms with it and just accept it. But that's just how
accept what?
Yeah.
Wait, what is he talking about? Is he saying that he's accepted the fact that he's going to hell for being bisexual? That's weird.
Yeah.
Formally. But I actually like that. Even though I'm no longer a member of the church, I like that mindset of agency, to right to choose. Just like right now, you're choosing agency to be loving and affirm on your belief, but you're not being hateful.
Right.
And again, I've been around, hateful Christians. I've been around good Christians. Majority of Christians who disagree.
Okay, I'm just going to say it one more time and then we're going to let it go. But the fact that you are excluding trans people from your event is in itself a hateful act. Okay? That is in itself a hateful act. So she is being hateful. And she is being hateful in not believing that trans people exist when there's no evidence in the Bible of anyone saying that trans people aren't real. So that is hateful. That's choosing to believe in something that is not even in existence in what you are claiming to be getting this context from.
Or disagree with me, they tend to come off very loving, and I don't hate them for it at all, because I understand where they're coming from, because I used to be a strong member of the church, knocking doors.
Yeah.
So yeah. By the way, out of curiosity, what specific religion are you from?
Yeah, somebody asked me this like last week, and I stumbled around the answer for so long and tried to describe it, and someone chats like, oh, you're non-denominational. And I was like, yeah, why did I just say that? So I'm going to take that. Non-denominational, there's a little bit of Presbyterian, there's a little bit of Reform, there's a little bit of Baptist, but I wouldn't really just like claim, one sect of Christianity. I believe what the Bible says is true. I believe that Jesus was born of a virgin, that, he lived a life on this earth. He died on the cross as a way to pay the punishment for our sins. He was buried, rose again 3 days, and now lives in heaven. So I think it's so hard.
Okay, but what do you believe in the Bible that says anything about trans people? None of that has anything to do with this.
To kind of like put that into a box, because I don't think I fit into one, Christian category necessarily.
That's fair. I think prior to me getting baptized at 16, I was non-dom also, and so the Mormons definitely give more structure in terms of Jesus. So I thank them for that. But it's for me now. It's very hard to navigate, what I am, Christ, Christian wise. But okay, I do have one question, and then I'll go on to the next one. So. This is a thought experiment I've been wanting to do with people at BYU. But if you notice in Christian churches today, there seems to be a old school versus new school mentality, the progressive members versus the old school people.
Yeah. And
in the Mormon church, I know a lot of people who served a mission with me who left the church because of the church's stance on either homosexuality or, their ideas on blacks back in the day. And so the Mormon has a bad track record, but my question.
Just for context, what he's talking about is that when the Mormon Church was founded, they deeply believed that black people were not allowed to be in heaven, and that they were inherently full of sin, which is why they were black in the first place. Just as a heads up, that's what he's referring to.
Question to you is, how do you reconcile progressive teachings of what Christ should be versus what the Bible strictly says Christ is, if that makes sense?
Okay, this is a frustrating question in the way that this is framed. Okay, how do you reconcile the progressive teachings of Christ versus what the Bible actually says? Okay, the implication here is that more progressive churches aren't teaching the Bible. They're teaching their own agendas, whereas non-progressive churches are teaching the real Bible. This is not the case. Progressive churches are teaching the Bible in a non-bigoted way. Much of the bigotry that comes from the church is made up from out of context Bible quotes, Bible lines, what are those called? Verses. It's from out of context Bible verses that have nothing to do with anything. Okay? So the way that this question is framed just is annoying to me.
I think I understand what you're saying.
Well, I guess in layman's terms, there's no room in my personal belief so far that God is that progressive. Like he's loving, but he's not like, hey, I'm gonna get you to heaven and you're practicing homosexuality or you're doing drugs all the time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Oh my Lord. Yeah, because if God exists, then he's definitely like a Fox News watcher. Jesus. Good Lord.
Yeah. No,
But if you talk to a progressive pastor, though, they seem to be more nicer with that rhetoric, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I think I do. I think that a lot of what progressive Christianity is built around, and this is what my my Twitter timeline has been flooded with, is that God calls you to love, right? God calls you to love. You're not being loving. And I agree. God does call us to love, but that's not the only attribute that characterizes God. And I think that the holiness or the justice of God is kind of being left in like what you would call that old school Christianity, and progressive Christianity is only or primarily, I'll say, I don't want to say exclusively, but primarily emphasizing the love aspect of who God is. But I think that he's more multifaceted than what a lot of progressive Christianity leans into. So I think that
God, in the way that, what's up, Yeg Mayhem? God, in the way that the Bible portrays him, is multifaceted. Certainly. You're taught to fear God. He's not just about love. He's also about punishment. Okay? But that doesn't mean that you are supposed to be that way. The Bible doesn't say that you should be feared. It should be about punishment. Okay? You don't get to make choices for people. Okay? You don't get to don't get to behave in the. You are not God. You are held to a different standard than God is.
there is a really impossible for a human to balance. I don't claim to have this figured out or balanced, but I think there is a balance between the holiness of God and the love of God. And that's why, sin is a big deal. Things that go against God's law, they are a problem. They do have, a punishment or discipline involved, which people don't like that. But
that's not for you to carry out. That's not for you to carry out. Even in your religion, if they're telling you that you are the judge, jury, and executioner of everything that you believe to be wrong, then they're telling you falsehoods.
That's not fun to talk about. But on the other hand, the love of God is giving a way to be forgiven, to be reconciled, to be made right with God. And I don't think that you can really appreciate one side of God's character without also bringing along the other side. So I think that's kind of where I stand as far as progressive Christianity is accepting the full character of God and applying it to modern culture. Then I'm totally for it, because we're not only dealing with biblical topics. They do need to be applied, like biblical truths need to be applied to 2023, right?
They are doing that. They are doing that, by the way.
Era. So in that sense, Christianity does need to progress, but the Bible is still relevant. You don't change the Bible to fit the culture. You apply biblical truths to what we have to face in the culture.
Yes, but what you just said implies that these 2023 topics that you're talking about, by the way, trans people have existed forever, okay? You are implying that those topics are already in the Bible and the progressives are changing it, while simultaneously saying that they need to be applying the old Bible to the 2023 topics that aren't in the Bible. So you can't have it both ways.
No, actually, I like that answer because, again, that's a thought experiment that I've been wanting to conduct on BYU's campus.
I want to hear these answers that you get. Yeah. If you go through with this, I think that's a really timely question. And I know I didn't really answer it directly because I don't think old school Christianity is fully right. I don't think progressive Christianity is fully right. I think that either can be right in that they're true to the Word of God. But I would be interested to hear other people's responses to that question. I think it's a good one.
Yeah, I need to go to Best Buy and get the proper equipment, because I definitely have been, I don't know, that's one of the many questions I've been asking, myself and, other members or former members. Like, why are you this progressive in a faith that honestly isn't that progressive, because they're tied with, Judeo-Christian values in the Old and New Testament. There's like,
that is a choice that churches make. That is not based off of any verses. Those aren't based off of Bible verses and facts that they've found. Those are choices that the churches make. These values that they are saying. I'm glad to see assimilation is still on their list. What do you mean? These values, the Judeo-Christian values that you're saying that these religions are based off of, the bigotry involved in them is a choice that the churches have made for years and years and years. It has nothing to do with what's actually written in the Bible. And once again, I'm begging you, Eric, please ask her where these Bible verses are. Or even you seem to believe in these things as well. Please tell me, where are these Bible verses that say that trans people don't exist and that it's wrong? Where is that?
As much as I, hate to, admit it, there is no room for homosexuality unless you're really trying to force, progressive thought into something that just won't fit.
What?
And so
I think you hit that so spot on, and I think that's the major pitfall of progressive Christianity, is shaping the Bible to fit the culture or to fit what you want it to say, and that's just so dangerous, because
that's what you do. That's literally what you're doing. Listen, you ask people why they don't like trans people based on the Bible, and they're going to tell you verses from the Bible that do not say anything about trans people. It's going to be an out of context verse that they say that they have interpreted to say that trans people don't exist. Okay? She is saying, well, you shouldn't be taking the Bible and shaping it to what you believe in. But that's literally what has been done with the many translations of the Bible and the many different sectors of Christianity. She's saying she doesn't like you, Eric Laval. I mean, she doesn't like Eric because he's not straight. So, I mean, that's true. She already said that.
These liberals are trying to assassinate my character.
That's true.
Vern and I both dreamt about Pillsbury Halloween cookies.
Very good.
What was the standard, right? Like, there has to be a standard of truth.
Yeah.
Is it going to be your experience? Is it going to be your personal beliefs? Or is it going to be what you want or what you feel? Or is it going to be something that's much more tangible and affixed, which in my opinion, that foundation should be the Word of God. So if I see something that's in my life.
Yeah, but you are making things up to support your bigotry.
That's not in line with the Word of God. I don't try to make the Word of God fit my life. I try to fit my life back to what I
You have done that in this instance.
Consider the standard. And I don't do this perfectly, but I do see the Bible as being the fixed point that you base the rest of the world around.
Yeah, no, I actually agree with that. I guess at the end of the day, I'll end it with this and say, if you find yourself playing mental gymnastics in order to make something work, maybe you should reevaluate what you believe in.
True.
And see if it's working out for you in the long run.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, it's like I said, the only reason why I'm a former Mormon now is because I kept.
Gravy woke me up by barking. All I heard was women are women. Yeah, it's because I wanted everybody in the neighborhood to know my stance on this.
Asking questions about Joseph Smith and Brigham Young and, their history.
Sure.
And if you know something about Mormonism, you'll know that there's a lot of bad blood, in the Mormonism. And if you look deeply into it, it's not a perfect religion. It's a very fallible religion, but people will tell you, don't listen to the prophets or, the past rhetoric because, they were men of God and, they made mistakes. I was like, well, yes, but at the same time, these were supposedly prophets.
Sure.
So if you're telling me not to look into it and I find some disparities here, that's telling me that I have to play mental gymnastics in order to make it make sense.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, good on you for asking those questions and doing, your own digging into it, especially when there's people telling you like,
I did not,
basically
Mayhem.
they say like, source, just trust me, bro. Right?
Yeah,
Like that's
exactly.
pretty much what they're saying. Like, don't look.
This is so funny to me. Because she is doing that exact thing. Source, give me your source, Moonshot. What's your source? Just trust me, bro. It's so stupid.
Into it that much. Just trust me.
Yes.
And for you, like, this kind of goes back to that idea of agency or free will. Like, you need to find out for yourself what your beliefs are in. And when people kind of dismiss it and say, like, just don't worry about that. You know what I mean? It's kind of like the Wizard of Oz. Like, don't look at the man behind the curtain kind of thing. And That's going to turn you off because you need to know for yourself where that truth is.
Oh yeah, exactly. And okay, so on to the second question. I got like a couple more, but
I'm sorry. I'm taking too long. I'll try to shorten up my answers.
No. That's fine. Like I said, this is enjoyable. And
keep them long, Moonshot, because every time you answer the question, you explain to me what exactly you are doing, the kind of gymnastics that you are doing in your own mind to support your bigotry. So I love it. Keep it going.
Try not to take like a lot of your time, but I actually really enjoy these kind of conversations.
Yeah, so fun.
Like overall, I do think this is a good, interview, and hopefully we get a lot of traffic because people can see that, what your answers are, and through those answers, hopefully they can find the human within you versus the bigoted, Christian conservative, and all the other rhetoric.
Sometimes, Eric, like people are going to see what they want to see,
That's true too.
And sometimes it's not really like I can try to convince them of who I truly am. But there's some people there's no convincing them, right? They've already decided you are this, and they've put you into that category, into that box, and there's nothing you're going to do to convince them otherwise. So I'm not saying I'm giving up or I'm not going to try, but you're never going to have 100% success rate of people actually understanding who you are because they have those.
Yeah, she's so oppressed as a Christian woman. Yeah, I can't believe it.
Yeah,
those predetermined ideas.
Which is true. All right, so. You mentioned earlier about the, your viewpoint on a women-only space when it comes to Halo, streaming. So my second question would be, do your views match your streaming? Like, for example, when you go to church, if you ever do go to church, do you prefer to have a woman's only, lesson about Jesus, or would you be more inclusive with someone who is trans, who identifies as a woman? If that makes sense.
I think I understand. I think that women's only spaces should exist in some capacity, but it's not obviously. I don't even think is the.
This is a weird question. I don't think this question is good. I don't think. Do you go to women's only church? Is what the question was. Is that what I'm getting? Is that does she spend time in a lot of women's only places that she's excluding trans people from? Women's only church. Yeah, I don't really get this question. I don't really care about it. I wish there are markers on here so I could skip this.
Majority of spaces, right? I think that the majority of spaces should be open, church included, esports competition included. The majority of it should be open, but I do think there is a place for women's only, if it's Bible studies or even if it's social clubs, athletics, esports. I think that there is value in having women's only spaces, but I don't think that they should be like, again, the majority of competition. Even with like esports tournaments, whenever I did a women's tournament, I think there's value in that to let those players have the spotlight, gain competitive experience. Some players are more comfortable competing in a women's tournament than they would in an open tournament, so it's a great experience for them. Or just for players to showcase their abilities. But I think that the goal, at least as far as I'm concerned, is always to lead into those open competitions that are not, kind of divided up in that way.
Okay, well, let's talk about that then. You mentioned earlier that women feel, I guess, more comfortable in women-only spaces when it comes to esports.
Some. Yeah.
Okay, I guess, why is that? Because in my mind, I feel like when
it's because esports are riddled with misogyny. Go to any random Twitch chat. Esports are riddled with misogyny. So of course, women would feel, a lot of women would feel more comfortable in a women's only like competition where they're not having to compete against somebody like telling them to go make them a sandwich or something, like some shit like that. Okay. But this fantasy world that you live in where trans women don't experience the same kind of misogyny that cis women do is ridiculous. It's stupid. Quill, don't do that. It's an interview with Magic-Moonshot. She's a Halo caster who was holding practice tournaments in her Discord for women only, and trans women were not allowed to compete. It's purely out of principle, nothing else. Love you too.
The online.
I'm gonna put this on YouTube, and I don't know who's gonna see it, and I really don't. I would really prefer if Magic. Okay.
And sphere of playing, for example, Halo. I think for me, I don't mind if people identify what they want because it's a video game. So I guess why would women feel, according to you, feel more comfortable around other female streamers versus trans female streamers or male streamers? I
think that female competitors, again, speaking to some and not the whole, some women that I have interacted with, they have had mistreatment from males in the community or from men, whether it's like verbal harassment or aggressive treatment, or I think a little bit more common even than that is just this idea that because you're a woman, you're not going to be as good. So kind of like I don't know how to describe that. Maybe like belittling treatment,
that's
which is not the same.
Yeah, and she's right on track with that. Is that does happen in many spaces? Is women in competitive video games experience a lot of misogyny? So she's right on that, and there is value to having women only spaces within gaming and esports, but that should also include trans women who experience those same things all the time.
Same as harassment, right? Some of it is direct harassment, like with words that I won't repeat on this interview, being launched at you simply because you come on open mic and you have feminine voice, or you're wearing like the cat ears and you're a bright pink Spartan right in the game. Some people are going to, simply because of you being a woman, are going to verbally harass you. But I think more common is this idea that because you're a woman, like you can't keep up with the big dogs kind of.
So she understands the misogyny that exists and the bigotry that exists and the anti-woman feelings that exist within esports. So she understands that that's real. She just refuses to accept that when it comes to trans women. Okay, I get it now.
Kind of mentality. So something that drives women away from competing in open events, and they feel like they have a little bit of a sense of security in playing with other women because we have that, shared experience for the most part.
Okay, that's actually a very fair point, because I used to, so I'm 31 now, and back in the day, I played Halo 3 live, back when you can say anything
right
online, and yes. They were brutal. Like, you can only imagine what they said to me. And like the N-word with the hard R was a real thing back in 2008. And even though I had a good sense of humor and it was funny to me, I can't blame Microsoft for, nipping that in the butt, because it could be very aggressive. And I've seen video clips of, how women are treated, online versus men. And yeah, I can understand females' hesitancy in the esports realm versus playing against men versus women. So I can respect that.
Yeah, and again, it's not everybody has the same exact experience, but it has been repeated so many times over that it's a significant portion of women in the gaming community that have been mistreated.
These things all exist today still. These things all exist today still. It's just really unfortunate that she chooses not to empathize with people outside of her own experience.
Some women mistreat other women. Like, that's not, that's part of the equation too, but more often it is men who are, condescending or talking down or belittling or even to the point of harassing to women. And so there are women who will compete in women's only events that might never touch open competition. But again, my goal is always for them to help build their confidence, build their enjoyment in competition, get some practice, get some reps in, and hopefully, like, the ultimate goal is for them to shine in those open events and tournaments. And I want to see women on the main stage at HCS. Like, when is that going to happen? Like, with Worlds coming up in just like 2 weekends. I want there to be women competitors that are in the World's HCS tournament, but there are none across 16 teams. So what can we do to help these women get the practice, the recognition, and their chance of that spotlight, which some of them have worked tirelessly to earn?
And her way of doing that, her little contribution into moving towards that openness and accepting women into professional esports and raising above the misogyny is to exclude a group of women gamers.
So I guess, how would you, like, let's just say you had a boot camp of, let's say, 7 women. How would you best prep them to be on that team? You said of 16?
Well, 16 teams.
16
teams, four players per team. So,
okay, so
what is that, 64 or 60? Yeah, I think it's 64 players. So going back, you're saying if you had a group of 7 women, how do you help prep them to, like, make it to that level? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
I think giving them more avenues for this.
I don't care about this question. I don't care about how she trains cis women esports gamers. That has nothing to do with why I'm watching this. Do we like Eric? I am trying to look at Eric with a lot of charitability, and I do not agree with a lot of his viewpoints. But I am trying to be charitable, is what I will say is my answer.
I'll be really honest with you, Eric. This is the question that I am at right now. Is like, hey, this is my ultimate goal. How do we get to that? And I have one woman competitor who's one of the top women in the league who, like, we're DMing each other, and I'm directly asking her, like, well, like, what can we do? Like, how do we help? And I mean, I don't want to say their name, obviously, because they didn't want to be public about it, but I asked this, like, I asked this question, like, earlier today, so it's just really timely. I want to see. I don't want to misquote her response.
I wonder why she wanted to remain anonymous.
My question was, how does this translate to esports? How do we build up women in gaming to believe in themselves? Was my specific question to her. And her response was information, women leading by example and spreading uplifting messages, spreading modern science as it reveals itself, etc. So it was this idea that we had been discussing, that a lot of what's holding women back is culturally based. So now we have this need to spread the right information and also get them in the spotlight as much as possible so people can see their true skill level.
Okay. So I guess who is the closest equivalent to a ninja as a female that you know of?
Like, as a competitor or as a live streamer?
He just asked, who's the girl ninja? Wow, that's a riveting question. Okay, we got Eric, can you get a different question, please? I don't want to hear about the girl ninja.
Competitor.
Man, you're putting me in a tough spot because, like, I don't want to name 5 people because then there's going to be 5 other people who are going to be mad that I didn't put their name out there. So, I mean, I will try. And so I'm sorry, there are names I'm forgetting, and I'm not going to be able to credit everybody. So a few of the first names that come to my mind from, again, only being in the scene.
No free clout.
Twitter Spaces too. I take it.
Yeah, for the most part. So yeah.
Okay, so I'll give them a follow afterwards.
Their tag and their Twitter username are not always the same.
Okay, which is good because
I don't really have any interest in hearing about her turf friends that she loves.
Comes to Twitter, I usually follow like either journalists or writers or political activists on both sides, but I seldom follow the streaming universe. That's a different realm of mine.
Well, but and not all competitors are streamers. Although I think for the most part, there's a pretty high percentage do both. But some players do commit to competing only and don't live stream. I think the majority do also do live stream like their tournaments and their practice sessions and stuff. But not all of them. Some of them only do the competition. So yeah.
Okay. All right. Okay. By the way, do you want to add anything else before I go on to the next question?
No, I think that's it. I guess your question of like, how do we help, these women or others like them to break through? And it's like, man, I would love feedback on how that commentary, casting side, streaming side, whatever. If people have helpful ideas for, I'm all ears, because I would like to.
I would just add, for me, and this is just again, this is me after years of being in the space of memes. I played Dark Souls a few years ago for the first time, the first one, and I loved it.
Yeah.
And there's that old, adage of get good, scrub, or skill issue.
Yeah.
And it sounds harsh, but the only reason why people like Margaret Thatcher or Joan of Arc are popular is because they broke the glass ceiling.
Right.
They were exceptional for being females in a male-dominated,
Margaret Thatcher
or politics. And so
get the fuck out of here.
That's the only harsh advice I have, because that's the only realest one. Like, if you really want to be the next ninja as a female or PewDiePie or whatever, you definitely have to be able to stand toe to toe with the, excuse my language, the assholes online, which you will find in the streaming universe. And it's rough, but that's just how it is. Like Joan of Arc or Margaret Thatcher, if you ever watched them or just hear what they had to say about things, they were built different. And that's what, I don't know, in my personal opinion, that's what I would teach my daughters if they wanted to, let's say, wrestle. It's like, okay, this is a male-dominated sport. You better man up. And not to be sexist, but you have to.
Yeah.
Because no guy is going to sit there and bend over backwards and let you take their spot. Yeah. And I don't know, but that's just my advice.
No, I think that's very applicable. And like, that was something that I faced.
I'm having troubles here. With Eric here. Yeah, there's so many great women like Margaret Thatcher. Holy shit. That's who you thought of for that? That's who you thought of? People still daily praise her death. Getting bullied? What is that? Crying? Well, I didn't hear what just happened.
Yeah.
Because no guy is going to sit there and bend over backwards and let you take their spot. Yeah. And I don't know, but that's just my advice.
What?
No, I think that's very applicable, and like that was something that I faced with casting, right? Trying to break into the casting industry is another that is heavily male dominated, and so it was one of those things where for a few months when I was like really just putting in the work, and I was putting in hours.
I don't think I'm going to finish this because we've been sitting here for forever, and we have moved on. We have barely scratched the surface on the issues of transphobia within gaming and her thoughts on that and her standpoint on that, and we have just been talking about like misogyny in gaming, which is not why I'm watching this. I do agree that misogyny does exist within the gaming space. Absolutely, of fucking course it does. But that's not why I'm here watching this. You know what I mean?
A VOD review,
like
coaching, practice, need to match that level of competition. They need that level of do it.
It's like I don't want to hear about if girls want to if women want to be pro esports player, they gotta put in the work or whatever they're talking about right now. It has nothing to do with what I don't care about that.
while receiving low that race, I guess you would call it. So like the hate comment me back, and I think that was as fuel to motivate me forward instead of something that I allowed to hold me back. And I think that in that sense, I can relate to the competitors, although I don't have the the controller skills that they have. But I think that's great advice of just like the emphasis is on you to prove yourself, and there are obstacles that get in the way that make it harder, I think, for women in the scene, not because of their ability, but again, going back to is above adversity.
Yeah, you said it perfectly well. And so going on to I guess it's my last question, and I'm trying to let me just try to word this properly, because I'm not trying to be inflammatory.
Okay, last question. Please be about the actual issue here.
So, how does male identifying women, if that makes sense, transgender women, affect the streaming industry at large?
The streaming industry or like esports competition?
Yeah, esports. Goes esports.
Okay. Because most of my, comments and stuff were directed towards the esport scene. So I guess where I'm coming from, and this is where people, very widely disagree with me, although some agree, is that if we're creating these women's only spaces for women to grow, learn, thrive, compete, then they should be kept to women only. And I'm not trying to oversimplify it. That's just how I spell it out. So it is
why though? That's the question. Why? What is your reasoning and rationale behind this? What makes you have this bigoted, which, let's be real, it is bigoted. It is discriminatory. Why do you have this discriminatory feeling towards trans women? What is it? And if you're saying your basis is because you're a Christian, then what in the Christian religion is telling you that you should be discriminatory towards trans women? Why? This is why this interview is so deeply frustrating, is because we're not getting to any issues. And the reason being is because Eric is not interested in understanding why, because I think he feels similarly to Magic, okay? And once again, I'm trying to be charitable here, but why? Please, I need more. Like, are we just going to go around in circles and hear the same answers over and over again? I think trans women are invading quote unquote biological women's spaces. I've heard that like 10 times in this interview. Why do you think that is happening? Why do you think that they shouldn't be there? Tell me, give me any good reason. If you are so convinced, what has convinced you that should be your opinion?
Again, not trying to hold back a transgender woman. I think they have the right to compete. I think they should compete. I think they should play Halo and they should thrive, but I don't see transgender women as being women. And so for something that is women only,
why?
You gotta draw the line somewhere. And people are saying that I am being discriminatory. I guess I'm discriminating transgender women in the same sense I'm discriminating all males by not being allowed at a women-only event. So in that...
No, you're not. Because men are not allowed in a women's event. Trans women are not men. It is not the same. You were not discriminating against men for not letting them be in a women's event. You were discriminating against women for not letting them be in a women's event. It's not the same.
Sense, yeah, because it is an exclusive.
You're discriminating against trans women, to be more specific. You didn't make a post that said men are not allowed in this in the women's tournament. You made a post that said trans women are not allowed in the women's tournament.
In the sense of a limited invitation event, I'm putting transgender women in the same category as men in that sense. So I don't.
Yes, and that is discriminatory.
Just like I don't see men as any lesser than women, but for something that is specifically geared for women. I didn't see them as women, so therefore they were excluded along with the other men.
Okay. Oh no, that's a good answer. I was going to say, because I follow, I guess you would call them quote unquote TERFs online, and I don't think.
Yeah, you're following MagickMoonshot. You are following at least one TERF. And this is what I like about Eric right here, is because he's going to start talking about, he's like, well, I'm following TERFs online, and they would say something very similar to what you're saying. But I wouldn't say that about you. When she is a TERF and maybe even self-identifies as a TERF. But the reason why he's framing it like this is because he knows that being a TERF is bad. He knows that it's bad, okay? But he doesn't know, I don't know. The reason why he's framing it this way is because he knows being a TERF is bad, but she herself might even self-identify as being a TERF.
I think they're TERFs, but that's beside the point. One thing, they always bring up is just, and they're correct on this, historically speaking, they feel like they've always had to fight tooth and nail for representation and, getting to where they're at. And they felt, in their own words, and you can push back on me if I'm wrong on this, slighted by the fact that I, as a male, can identify as a woman and then head into their space and take over positions that they rarely can take over themselves. If that makes sense.
But is your standpoint here that trans women don't have to fight tooth and nail in the same way that women have had to fight for rights? Because that's absolutely ridiculous. You're out of your mind. Look around you. Open your eyes. You're like, oh yeah, trans women have such a leg up in American society. Please be serious.
I understand what you're saying. I just, I think, in a conversation I had with...
I love this question because he's like, oh yeah, I follow some TERFs online and they have this opinion. What do you think about that? And she clearly also knows that being a TERF is supposed to be societally, or it's supposed to be, it's a bad thing. Right? So she doesn't want to say, yeah, I definitely agree with that, because then she's just agreeing with, he goes, oh, do you agree with TERF talking points? And she's like, this is a tough one. Even though she 100% definitely fucking agrees.
A transgender woman, they asked me, do you feel threatened by transgender women? I'm almost certain is the direct question, but I could look it up if you wanted. And my response was, I believe transgender women threaten the opportunities of women. And so in that sense,
excuse
what you're asking.
What? Trans women threaten the opportunities of women. How? I'm so tired. Oh my God. I'm sorry I'm saying it. Eric, you're a bad interviewer. If you don't ask how, could you explain that further? How do you think that works? If you don't ask that, you are a bad interviewer and you need practice. Okay? Because I'm so deeply frustrated because she's been making baseless claims for 47 minutes and you never have her explain her position on anything. You're just allowed. This is platforming someone who is transphobic. This isn't like having an open discussion and or a debate. You agree with her and are allowing her to come on here and make these baseless claims without any pushback. Okay? It's deeply frustrating.
About if the goal is to highlight women and to help them to practice and prepare for competition, then I don't know how else to say. A women's only space should be only for women, and that's as much as it is. So as soon as you let transgender women in, then what's to exclude it just from being an open to all men event?
Because men are not women, you freak, you cretin. Men are not women. That's how. It's so stupid. Well, once you let trans women in, what's to stop men from coming in? You just say no because they're not women. You're such a weirdo. Like, these people are such weirdo perverts. It's so stupid. Yeah, if we let trans women in, then men are just going to start dressing up like women and they're going to enter those competitions. When does that happen? That doesn't happen. And it's not because you are some valiant knight that is the one person standing in the way of that happening. It's because men are not interested in entering into women's only Halo tournaments. If they are, then they're weird.
I understand that. It's weird. It's because I've had this discussion multiple times with people on Twitter and Twitter Spaces, and I've always told them at the end of the day, it's very hard. And like I get the need for being inclusive, but it's very hard for me to tell you.
Okay, hold on. Oh, sorry. Okay, we're back. I thought we were disconnected.
That you need to be able to invite anybody who identifies as a woman, because you gave a good argument as to why you feel best in your choice of only having a biological woman's space. Yeah. And
she doesn't give any arguments. You are just simply allowing her to make baseless claims. These aren't good arguments. She's just saying bigoted things, and you go, okay, that's fair. You can have an opinion. And yes, you're allowed to have an opinion, but it can also be wrong. And you could also ask for context in those opinions, which would be actually doing a good interview, which this is not.
I do believe you made on Twitter, you also said you're down for you're down for transgender men, right?
Sure.
Yeah. Because biologically they're women.
Yes.
And so
that's so stupid.
Sure.
But it's definitely.
That is so stupid. I hate this. She's just being bigoted for no reason. That's so stupid.
Yeah. Again, I'm getting into creative writing and journalism, and you try and be objective, but at the same time, it's very hard to disagree with a compelling argument like that. And I don't know, I guess what is I guess the question I'd be asking people on both sides on Twitter, what is your definition of a middle ground where both sides are happy? And if there is no middle ground, that's totally understandable.
Yeah, I mean,
there doesn't need to be a middle ground. There's acceptance and unacceptance. There's the acceptance and discrimination. Okay, she is on the side of discrimination. Other people are on the side of acceptance. There's not a middle ground in between acceptance and discrimination. You have to choose one of them. And there doesn't need to be a middle ground reached in these kind of issues all the time. It's silly to think that you need to be reaching a middle ground with people on things like this. You don't.
I guess in this scenario, the only way that I, quote, made everybody happy was to run a completely open event, right? That was open to everyone.
No. That is you continuing to be bigoted. If you wanted to make everyone happy, all you had to do was include trans women. That is not making the event open to everybody. That is simply including trans women. That's it.
I would not have been happy inviting transgender women into my Discord, labeling them as, lady Spartans or female Spartans or whatever.
Oh, I get. The only way that everybody, including her, would be happy would to have an open tournament, because she can't be not bigoted for one moment.
I would feel dishonest to myself and my beliefs as a Christian to do.
What beliefs as a Christian? And once again, this is so maddening. It's so mad. Oh, my beliefs as a Christian. Yeah, my pastor told me that trans people aren't real people and I should hate them. So that's what I believe. Give me anything. Give me anything to go off of here.
Do that, right? But obviously, it hasn't also made people happy to say that where I was drawing the line did not make people happy. So the only place that I can figure to draw the line is to not draw it at all in order to make everyone happy, would be to just have.
Well, now no one's good. Only other bigoted people are going to be participating in your tournaments now, so it doesn't fucking matter. Draw the line wherever you want. You already did it and died on that hill, so there's no fixing it.
An open scrim or an open tournament. I don't really think of another middle ground where I could feel like I'm being true to myself and my beliefs, and also, quote unquote, making people happy.
Okay, I like that answer, because I feel like in the esports sense, you can definitely make the argument, okay, we can keep it open. But obviously when it comes to things such as, outside of the realm of esports, like bathrooms or sports, obviously that's a bit tougher to do for a middle ground. But
there doesn't need to be a middle ground for those things. The problems that people have with trans people in sports, or trans people using the correct bathroom for themselves, the problems that people have with that are made up fantasies. They're violent fantasies that conservatives have made up for themselves. They're like, oh yeah, trans women are going to go into the women's bathroom and sexually assault the women in there. Guess who goes into women's bathroom and sexually assaults women? Men. Cis men. You will be hard pressed to find any stories of trans people doing that. Okay? Oh, yeah, trans people can't participate in sports because they'll absolutely dominate the competition. They'll dominate everybody in the competition. That's not happening anywhere. Okay? In fact, the bills that are being passed or trying to be passed throughout the country target oftentimes 1 or 2 people total in the whole city, in the whole state. Okay, these are fantasies and delusions that you're having. Get help.
I have heard good arguments of just keep things open or unisex. So I can actually appreciate that and let people come in if they choose to, knowing the space is for anybody.
Sure.
So I know that's overall a good middle ground, actually. Okay.
I mean, esports is different than like what you're describing with like the basketball.
Oh, here we go.
And the traditional athletics, which is my background. My background is in traditional athletics. I played soccer for 12 years. I played basketball for 6 years. I don't know, something like that. And then I went into being an athletic director, being a coach for multiple sports, etc. And like when you talk about traditional sports, you are dealing with a lot more of physical differences between males and females. So it's the same discussion, right? But it's a different avenue. I still, and this is another thing that a lot of people disagree. I still think there are biological differences in males and females when it comes to esports, but at a much, much smaller scale than what you would see in like.
Excuse me? What the fuck? Did she really just say that men were born better at video games? I'm losing my mind. This has been too long of an interview.
You see, okay, I guess that would be the bonus question. And then, I won't take up too much of your time. So I guess in your opinion, what is the difference in esports? I've also heard the argument for like women's only chess. And in my mind, I go, well, I feel like that should be open also. So I guess, like, what is your opinion on it?
Women's only spaces are not because women are worse at things than men. It's because men are disgusting and they're shitty, especially in video games and in competition like this. They treat women like shit. So they have women's only spaces so that they can compete in a comfortable situation. Okay? It's not because they're like worse at video games. And that we need fair competition for women so they can only play video games with other women. No, that's not why that exists.
My opinion is that men and women are created differently. Like, we have distinctive features. And I think that some of those do apply to esports. And I'm still...
Like what?
You're asking the right questions, because you're right, like, where I'm at. I'm currently, like, listening to an audiobook that is on this exact topic of,
What?
I have a serious way in on this where I do serious.
No. I'm almost done. Okay, well, I need to finish this first. No, you can after I'm done with this, but I'm trying to finish this.
Are men and women's brains.
I know, I'm almost done with this. I've watched like the whole thing, and I'm in the last 10 minutes, so I'd like to finish this before I let you take over. So just give me a moment. Okay, here.
Okay, so I just heard her say that she alluded to men are better at video games, and I just wanted to say that in our culture, especially like what I noticed growing up as a girl, is that video games were made and targeted towards boys and people who grew up as boys. So like, and when there was a girl character in the game, they were like hypersexualized. Like, why the fuck does Rogue the Bat look like that? It's not really like something that young girls can connect with. Like it was for the male gaze and like teaching young boys what sexuality is and like what is sexual. It was weird. But like, yeah, video games a lot of the time were for boys, and I thought that like Mario and like all of those games and Sonic, and I thought those were for boys, and I didn't play them. So like, yeah, it's just so ingrained in, I guess, like young boyhood to play video games and like gamer culture and like the Halo boys and everyone staying up and drinking Mountain Dew. Like Mountain Dew was marketed towards boy gamers. Like there's a whole culture about it. And so it's just like, it's upsetting to hear her say that like boys were born better at video games or whatever, because it's all a societal thing. And it's just like really ugly to hear her say these things.
Yeah, I that's a really good point. And also the gender roles that she prescribes to, or that she follows, the gender roles that she follows and she pushes are very much so the reason why you don't see many women in professional esports. It also is because in their traditional gender roles, girls aren't supposed to be playing Halo. They're supposed to be playing with like fucking dolls or something. I don't know.
Brains different, and so I'm still like in the middle. I haven't come to a full consensus, but I have seen studies on both sides that
I love that she's like, yeah, men and girl brains are different, and it makes men better at video games than girls. It's like, what are you talking about? What are you saying? Like, are you saying that girl brains are dumb and can't play video games? I don't get what your point is here. She's like, I've seen many studies, doesn't name a single one of them.
There is no difference. I've seen studies that say, men's reaction times are quicker, or that they have a competitive advantage because of their, their tendency towards competitive endeavors. But
what?
I've also seen people saying that that's all cultural or environmental, and that it is a level playing field. So I guess to answer your question, I don't have a firm answer because I'm still.
So she's saying yes, I do believe that guys are better at video games, but I have no basis for that opinion, and I've seen studies that say that it's social. And that's the reason why, but I don't really believe those ones. I believe the ones where they say girl have dumb brain, not for video game. Why?
In the research phase, I still firmly stand by the point that men and women are different. And so even the way we approach something like video games, it is going to be different, but I don't see as one being like greater than the other or having more value or more capability than the other, just because of those differences.
Okay. No, that's actually good. I follow this guy on YouTube named Peter Boghosi, and you probably heard of him.
I don't recognize the name.
Okay, well, he does like the Jubilee style of questions. He puts people on this little
Oh, he's talking about one of those guys that was standing at PSU saying transphobic shit. We watched that video forever ago.
epistemology, idea where he questions, why do you believe strongly what you believe in? And he'll question random people on college campuses, around the world. And he'll ask people questions about, why do you believe so much, so firmly in this? And what evidence would you use to change your mind? And he says the best way to figure out who's the ideologue versus someone who's open, to change is asking this question: is there any amount of evidence that would sway your mind? If they say no, then you're wasting your time.
Right.
So you did a good job at least admitting that even though you have your biases, you're still doing the research.
That's so stupid. He's like, oh, you're so awesome for saying that you don't have all the evidence on whether or not men have an inherent advantage in video games. Like, you just had an hour-long discussion about how she is not willing to move positions on trans people being allowed in women's esports, and then are like, yeah, but you're so awesome for having an open mind to whether or not men's brains are smarter for Halo. That's so stupid.
The footwork to understand, okay, well, maybe if I understand the situation better, I can change my mind, which is very hard to do.
Yeah, I think that there are some gaps that I'm still like researching and studying up on, right? I want to learn. I think that at the core, like, there are things that I am not going to change my mind on, which makes people on Twitter very angry. I believe that men and women are different. I don't believe a man can become a woman. I don't believe a woman can become a man. And
Why though?
And that's really one of those things where it's like, I'm not going to look at pretty much any amount of research because that's something that is grounded in the Bible. So unless
this is so silly.
Sudden reading through the Bible and it's completely different words than I've ever read before, I guess maybe that would convince me. But
all those passages you read where the 11th commandment is that you shall not be trans. What are you talking about? You're so stupid, and she's so smug about it too, and it pisses me off. It's like, you are getting the biggest softball here. You're getting you're getting a slow underhand throw so you can bat it out of the park right now. It's so silly.
I have done my study as far as like the biblical basis. So
I have done my studies as far as the biblical basis. Then why are you choosing not to dive into that at all?
Going back to what we talked about earlier, I'm using that as the standard. But when you talk about things like, do the biological differences of males and females apply to esports? That's something that I need to do more studying on, and I'm undetermined. I still think that even if the answer is no, that there's no, advantages, disadvantages, or even differences, because I don't want to say advantage, disadvantage. I think that strengths and weaknesses still end up leading to equality. Men and women have equal value, equal ability, but sometimes it's seen in different attributes, right? Physically a little bit more obvious than maybe intellectually or biologically. But even if there was no difference whatsoever, I still think there's value in women-only spaces within esports, kind of for what we had talked about earlier, for the cultural reasons. Alone would still be enough.
I agree with her there, but she's not talking about including all women. She's only talking about including cis women in that. But I do agree that there is value in women's only spaces within esports spaces.
Want to preserve women only spaces in gaming and esports.
Okay. No, that's a good answer. Okay. So I guess to end the conversation, my question for you is, and I guess you kind of answered it earlier, but it pertains to what would you, how can I word this? What would you tell new female streamers in order to become more popular with their streaming in esports?
I don't care about this question. What advice would you give to streamers? What advice would you give to new female streamers? I don't care about that. That has nothing to do with anything that I'm watching that I want to care about or that I want to talk about. Anyways, that was the whole interview. A whole fucking hour listening to Eric McRae and MagickMoonshot. We'll post that up on YouTube. What's up, Victor Spade? How you doing? We're going to post that up on YouTube so that because the Plebian, a.k.a. Eric McRae, asked me to give my thoughts on it, and so I did.